Say when.
Okay, I will say when here. And, okay, so it's July 22nd, and Mom's going to ask Grandma a few questions.
All
So
right.
what encouraged your father to move from England to the New World?
The New World. Okay, London, England. Grandpa Stringer and his wife Dorothy had 4 children when they decided, when they got a letter from Canada where Mom's brother, grandmother's Stringer's brother, Stanley Todd, was currently living in Canada, and some other relatives were living there, New Brunswick, Canada, and they said, come on over, we've got a job for you. You can do background painting for this theater near New Brunswick, Canada, that you're such an artist, you can do this thing where you do all the background scenes for the theater. And you will eventually end up redecorating that theater on the inside, which is what Fred Stringer, the grandfather, and his 3 teenage sons, Fred, George, probably Ernie, got on swinging stages in the theater, which Emporium Theater near New Brunswick.
St. John's?
Yeah, St. John, New Brunswick. They painted all the dome ceiling, and the stage with this gold leaf, which you put on sheet at a time with a brush. So they were on swinging stages, and I understand that Fred did fall from a swinging stage, but caught himself.
Fred, your dad, or Fred, your brother?
Fred, the oldest brother.
Your brother.
My oldest brother,
Okay.
Fred. He was
Okay.
a teenager at the time. Anyway, he did that in New Brunswick, but the winters were horrible. And so when Uncle Stanley in Canada said, come on over, you can do something, I'm backtracking my story now. They went from London to New Brunswick, Canada. And then Canada was just way, way too cold after 2 more children were born, which was Bess and Jack and Stan, I guess, were born. So by that time they had 7 children, and Uncle Stanley, who by that time was in California, said, come on out to California. You can work for the movie studios and paint backdrop scenes. 1926. Okay, here we come on the train. Dad went out ahead, and Mom had 7 or 8 children on the train from New Brunswick to California.
She never knew how many she had, right?
And I, let me get a little drink here.
Yeah, go ahead.
I hear tales of what the children were doing on the train as they traveled. And one of them was, they found a box of powder and threw it all over the place. And everybody was covered head to toe in powder. And you know, we have a Stringer family history book that we created, and all those stories are in that book, and it's a wonderful history of our family. But anyway, when they got to California in 1926, 2 years before I was born, the Depression was just starting to go really strong. So Dad did not get a job painting background for the movies. He didn't have any job. And by that time he had about 9 or 10 children. So in order to make money, he would paint these little plaques of various, flowers or whatever the scene was, a little house and garden. And the 3 oldest brother would go door to door selling these little plaques that Dad had painted and what they got for them at the time. But they got a little bit of money from that, and along with the bread line where they got free bread and growing tomatoes in the yard, we had tomato sandwiches 3 times a day, daily. And at the time, Aunt Helen and Aunt Bess, my sisters, were like substitute mothers if my mother was too sick to take care of her children, which happened a lot. And so Bess would tell stories, when I was only like 3 at the time, but she'd tell stories about they'd clean up the house, put all the kids outside, like 10 or 12 of them by that time, and open the kitchen window and feed us tomato sandwiches through the window so that we couldn't come back into the house and mess it up again. So that's why I'm an outdoor girl.
I see.
They would never let us back in.
They were nasty. They were mean.
But that house was built on a hillside so that the back porch slanted just slightly towards the slope of the hill. And so Doris and I, my sister Doris and I, would play on that back porch, and they had the old tub wringer type washing machine that around the bottom of this circle washing machine there was a little rubber ring that we could stand on and go around the edges of the washing machine. And so Doris and I were doing that, and suddenly she decided to jump off. Well, she happened to be on the upside of the porch, and by her jumping off, it made the whole washing machine tip over on top of me. And I survived. Like I say, we were 3 when we moved from there, so the things that I remember still, being 2.5, 3, was being stung by a bee because I was running barefoot, of falling on the cement doorstep and cutting myself here, and going down the hill to what they call was Palandine's grocery store.
Oh, yeah.
And so Doris and I were always together because she was 1.5 years older. And she'd go in first, and then she'd let the screen door slam in my face each time I went in. And she reminded me of that. She says, you know, I was chasing you when you fell on the porch. That was my fault. I jumped off the wash machine. That was my fault. And then I let the screen door slam in your face when we'd go to the grocery store. She said, whenever I was around you, you were always getting hurt. So anyway, then from there we moved, down the hill, probably 5 miles from there to a city of Highland Park, I guess it was, on a city street just a couple blocks from the main drag, in a 2-story house, and that's where Mom had her last baby, which would have been Dan. And the doctor said she really had a dangerous time having this baby, and so no more children. And by that time, Helen, who had practically raised the last 5 or 6, was 18 years old, and she wrote Dad a letter that said, if there are any more babies born, I am moving out. I have to have a life of my own. I've never been able to date, go anywhere, do anything but take care of babies. And so Dad got the message, and then from then on, there were no more children.
Miraculous.
Yeah. Number 14 was born on Roselawn Place that comes to me. That was where we lived in Highland Park. So I think I was about 5.5 or 6 when we moved up to Monterey Road in Highland Park still, but it was up on a tall cliff, I would say, of maybe 30 or 40 feet. The house was right on the edge of this dirt cliff.
You always lived on cliffs.
And then to get down to the street, there's these stairs down to the street, or you could go on a back road down another block and get down to the main street. So we were there from the time I was 6 till I was 12, going into the 7th grade, I think. And lots of experiences there. And then we moved to South Pasadena, and went to South Pasadena Junior High and South Pasadena Senior High. And they had a very good school system there. And so all the kids, there were 5 younger than me, Shirley, Bob, no, 4 younger than me. Shirley, Bob, Dan, and Dave were younger than I was. So they all went to the South Pasadena schools there.
With the rich kids.
There were, by the time you got up into the high school, which was combined South Pasadena, San Marino, you were in an area where some of those children, their parents were millionaires, really. Like
Wow.
Dean Witter with the stock market, and several of those families from San Marino were in the stock market business. So anyway, because of that high school, they didn't want to have discrimination between the wealthy kids and the not wealthy kids, so everybody had to wear a uniform. Navy blue skirts and white blouses. And by that time, Doris, who was 1.5 years older than me, was like, she would have been in the 9th grade, and she didn't want to go to South Pasadena schools because she was very happy with Highland Park. So she tried to get an inter-district transfer, and they refused it. So she refused to go to school, going into the 10th grade. And so Dad would put us all in the car and say, "You're going to school, I'm dropping you off in front of the school," with this old beat-up car that we were so ashamed of. And as soon as he'd get around the corner, Doris would say, "Goodbye, I'll see you tonight," but she wouldn't go in that school. And she got away with it for about 1 year, and then Bess moved to Connecticut and needed help with her 4th baby, so she said, "Doris, come back to Connecticut and help me." So Doris was back there for a couple of years, and by that time then I was the oldest one at home, so I was the boss.
Woo-hoo.
And that's how I became so bossy.
I see. You had good practice.
Yes. So, but yeah, because Bess and Helen had moved on, got married, moved on. And so, so we're in South Pasadena, and then I guess the next part of my story is how I met Susan and Jack's father, Donald Schultz.